All right, thanks everybody for joining us today. Like I said, my name is Kelly Mann and I am the Director of Programs with A Time to Heal. And I just wanted to start off by thanking our title sponsor, Nebraska Cancer Specialists. They sponsor each of our Create Your Best Life events, our monthly educational webinars, including our session today. If you'd like to hear more information about them, you can visit their website at nebraskacancer.com. And joining us today, we have Amy Lippens. Amy is the Grief Education Director at Mourning Hope Grief Center in Lincoln, Nebraska. She holds a mental health practitioner license with a master's in social work from the University of Nebraska at Omaha. And before becoming a staff member at Mourning Hope, Amy spent nearly 30 years in the public school system. She was a school social worker and a school counselor, and she was a member of the crisis response team. Currently in her role at Mourning Hope, she provides counseling, supervises interns, and trains volunteers for group discussion or group facilitation. Thanks for joining us today, Amy.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. And so let me do the awkward screen sharing bit here too. All right, I think that we've got it. Here, let me scooch this over a little bit.
Yeah, everything looks good on our end. Thanks, Amy.
Whoops. Okay. All right. So let's launch right into this topic that I know is difficult. And I applaud your courage for coming on today because we all may have come on for a different reason. Maybe we are a caregiver, maybe you are in the midst of the cancer journey yourself, or maybe you are bereaved due to losing a loved one to cancer. So for whatever reason, I just really appreciate that you thought this topic of grief was one that was worthy of some time this morning, and able to maybe put some of that trepidation aside just to learn how to grieve in a healthy manner and join us. So I hope that today we can come together and help each other and offer hope and solace at a time of grief. So let's see, advance my slides here. I thought, even though we're on Zoom, it's always nice when we come together to break the ice a little bit and to get a little bit settled in and comfortable. So I thought, oftentimes we leave the self-care bit at the end of a presentation and it gets a little cheated. So I thought, let's start with everyone sharing in chat would be fine. A way that you take care of yourself. It's Saturday too. That's, weekend. We sometimes maybe have a little extra time to do something that's nurturing and TLC for ourselves. So just share something that you found that you are able to do on a regular basis that just helps you be good to yourself. Let's see.
And Elaine, if you don't want to put it in the chat, you can always say it out loud too, if that's easier.
Well, I'm trying to figure out how to get it onto chat, but since I'm on, but one thing that I found really helpful is to go to daily mass.
Yes, virtual.
Yep.
Outlets for sure.
I love to sleep in on the weekends.
Great. Anyone else can chat or just say it out loud? My favorite is probably doing a gratitude journal every day. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I just list things that have gone well that week, or it's a little thing that I'm grateful for. And it shifts my brain.
I find that a nice walk is helpful, or even just working with some flowers out in the garden.
Anything to keep busy, especially like crocheting, cooking, anything like that to keep busy. And then I've been really fortunate. I've got a tremendous group of friends, and they have really kept me out and going.
Good.
Looks like Steve put in the chat, get outside and feed the birds and deer.
You have one, Kelly?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Yeah, it looks like Steve in the chat said he likes to get outside and feed the birds and the deer.
Oh, okay.
And then Tom also said that he started a support group 14 years ago and has found that it helped him heal.
Wonderful. And how about you personally, Kelly? Do you have one that you like?
I like to take my dog on a walk. I think that's really therapeutic for me.
That pets are awesome. Well, let me tell you a little bit about Mourning Hope Grief Center. It is in Lincoln, and we offer support for children, adults, and families before or after a death loss. It's almost 30 years ago that founder Pam Deneen started Mourning Hope out of, she and I were on the crisis teams together in the schools, and we found that after we would respond at a school, there were many, especially teens, that needed to come together and talk about their grief and their stories. And so Pam founded Mourning Hope at that time, and it started with a small teen group. It's grown over the 30 years to include families and just a variety of programs with the mission of no one has to grieve alone. So a big piece that it started out with was 10-week groups. And so not just teens now, but we go from 4 years young to 100 years young, whoever needs our services. And we hold 4 of those 10-week support groups a year. We also have support groups in the schools. We have support groups specific for young adults, 18 to 30-ish, adult support groups, specific to suicide support groups. We do special events like 2 camps for families, 1 for youth, some holiday time events, some summer art related events. We do counseling individually, and we have training such as this. And we also have interns that come from several universities to learn about grief counseling. And Kelly was kind of saying how their A Time to Heal agency became really good at the virtual option over the pandemic. So did we. We served many countries and outside of Nebraska, of course. And now we don't do as much virtual since we're more back in person, but definitely learned a lot about how we can reach so many more with those virtual groups. And it's nice too, just on a day like today, to be able to hop on a Zoom, and it's pretty comfortable for everybody. And that's been maybe one tiny silver lining of pandemic time. But all of our services are free. We get support through private donations, United Way, individual and business generosity. And so all of our services are free, which we really feel is so important, because for someone who maybe is newly bereaved, lots of changes in financial situations, or just, it's easy to be able to come and not have to worry about the pay part. So we've really hope to keep that as an offering. This is what our center looks like. It's brand new. We're very proud and excited about it. In 2018, we began a capital campaign to build, because the building we were at on Wesleyan's campus was to be torn down, and we were outgrowing it. It was a house. So we wanted to build one that looked like a house, felt like a house, comfortable, inviting. And then it was due to open when 2020, the darn pandemic again. So we got the virtual things going, and now we've finally opened in 2021 and are in full swing and actually building more offices. There's lots of pounding going on during the week, usually when we're here right now. So we're growing even yet. Here are just a sampling of some of the rooms that we have upstairs for children to be able to express themselves through their play, because we know that is their format of expression and helping themselves process. So that first one on the left, it looks like a house within a house. It's, a playhouse and a fire pit in there and a slide coming down. That middle one is a hospital room so that kids can maybe reprocess an event when their person was in the hospital, and they can maybe dress up as the doctor and have some little bit more control over what's going on. On the right there, the emotion commotion room, it's padded walls, and so they can go in there and really let out some steam. There's a punching bag, and there's little noodles in the corner to point at the feeling they're feeling and that type of thing. Then we have a game room, because we know kids just need to let off steam, be a kid when they're grieving. I go in there with individual youth clients, and they're way more apt to talk to me when we're shooting baskets or playing on that air hockey table than if I was to sit across from the table with them. So I love that room. And then the theater room there on the bottom right, where they can act out, and it's just a beautiful setting. We also have a quiet room that has twinkling stars in the roof, an art room, a specific to teens room, a time machine. We use sand trays, doll houses, puppets, everything you might imagine. Founder and executive director went around the country and gleaned from different centers what they thought we wanted to incorporate, and it turned out just as a beautiful center. I would highly recommend coming and having a tour if you ever are inclined. Here, hold on a sec. So grief. Let's launch into the topic, which I love this picture. It's the elephant in the room many times, and death could, also be added in here. And so, we'll all experience it. So, yet as a culture, we kind of deny people access to talking about that. We do a good job of not really teaching about it or making it a comfortable topic to deal with, even though none of us will escape it. It's natural experience. So, sometimes I equate it with sex. We just, oh no, that's not anything we want to talk about yet. The healthy thing is to dive in and talk about that. Again, I just applaud your courage of coming on today and wanting to learn more. Love this quote by Earl Grolman. Grief is not a disorder, a disease, or a sign of weakness. It's an emotional, physical, spiritual necessity. The price we pay for love. The only cure for grief is to grieve. I'm going to pick that apart a little bit. Yeah, it's not a disease, a disorder. Sometimes the clinicians want to, label somebody with this debilitating grief, but it's a necessary process that we all go through, and it's directly proportional to that love we feel. And the more we try to escape it, the more it's going to nag us and tap at us and follow us around until we will address. The only thing I don't like about this quote is that word cure, because we don't want grief to be thought of as something that we can get over or take a pill for, or recover from, or that's fixable. It's a process that we must go through. And so must grieve in order to feel healed. The skin knee, we usually oftentimes talk about this at our center. It's helpful analogy with kids, but I use it with adults all the time. Because we've all probably had a skin knee where we crashed our bike and got, skidded across the gravel or the concrete. And we then ask, what do we do first, usually when that happens? Oftentimes the answer is we run to our caregiver to get some help. And what if that caregiver just slapped on a Band-Aid? The kids and the adults always answer, oh no, that it would get infected, it would not heal. And so then we talk about how, right, we have to clean that wound out. We have to get in and clean out the dirt and the grime and the rocks and the gunk. Then we can help it heal more effectively and quickly. And I remember my caregiver, I would go and she put that peroxide on it and it would hurt. So just like grief, it hurts. It's not something we naturally want to address and be in. But without that cleaning out of the gunk, we don't heal. And even though that's difficult, that's the message that we really want to have the bereaved know, that though difficult, must lean into it. And again, too, our caregiver usually offered TLC and held us or comforted us as they cleaned that gunk out. And so that's what we want to do with grievers, whether that's ourselves or that we're supporting someone who's going through grief, to balance that with that gentle, loving approach to cleaning out the gunk. I always like to really make sure we're clean, knowing the difference between grief and mourning, because semantics, in day-to-day life, it's kind of used as the same thing, but it's helpful to see the difference, that grief is the feeling we feel internally when we experience loss, but mourning is the outward expression of that grief. Some people can grieve all their lives, but if they don't mourn, they won't heal. So it's that outward expression, that grief gone public, that is going to help us move towards reconciliation of our grief. So, and not everyone wants to talk or go to a support group. So many different avenues of that, with writing or art or just being in nature. Lots of different ways that people can choose to mourn. And again, why we put in our center all the different things for youth to use. And we also have outdoor spaces for adults to be, and just hopefully lots of ways that people can come and know that they have a safe place to mourn. Our culture has set up lots of different myths about grief that we like to debunk. That first one, that grief and mourning are the same thing. Again, just what I was talking about, there are different, and helpful to know those differences. The myth, people should move away from grief, not toward it. Natural to not want to feel that pain, but with support and nurturing, we can move towards it, and that's how we heal. Tears of grief are only a sign of weakness. We know tears are a wonderful expression, and not everyone cries. And if that's not your way of grieving, that's okay too. But if people are crying, it's not because they're not doing well. It's because it's their way of letting that grief out. The next myth, after someone dies, we should try to just get over it as soon as possible. And I think we can probably see why our culture keeps that one going, 5 days, 3 days bereavement leave, and then you should be able to go back to work and do your thing. But truly, grief is not anything that we ever get over. We don't ever get over love. And so it would be natural that we would not get over grief either. I tell people all the time, but that doesn't mean it's always going to feel this sharp or this harsh. And if you do that work of mourning, it will soften and be integrated into our day-to-day life and not so debilitating or all-encompassing. That last one, people grieve in predictable and orderly stages. No, it's more like this, where in and out and all around and unpredictable. No start, no finish, really. Mixed up and messy. We often know of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. We study her in school as someone who came up with those stages of grief, denial, and anger, and recovery. And truly, that's kind of a myth too. Her work was really for those in the dying stages and not those who are grieving someone who has died. So we like to not have people think they're going to be going through these stages and then be done. It's more, yeah, there may be some stages or some different predictable things that people go through, but we go in and out of them and we don't ever just get done with them. So we try not to use the stages paradigm so much. Every person, just like our thumbprints, grieves in their own way. That's what makes it beautiful, and also which makes it hard to know what to say and do. We're all just so unique in our grief, and for many reasons listed here. The two biggies are just the nature of the relationship that we had with the person who died. We're all experiencing that in a unique way. And the nature of the death as well makes our grief so very unique. Whether it be a sudden death, a death from a long illness, something we call disenfranchised grief, perhaps one that people aren't really wanting to recognize because maybe it was an ex-spouse or something. Well, why would you be grieving that? No, people still would grieve that even because they had one time a relationship with that person. Or disenfranchised because it's a stigmatized death like suicide or drug overdoses are two big ones that sometimes our society doesn't validate. And so that can make our grief more complicated and unique. Those other factors that make it unique, what kinds of support we're getting, our religious and cultural experiences, whether we had the funeral experience, and that really was impacted heavily with COVID, where people weren't able to have that ritual, or if they did get to have a funeral, it was maybe fewer people gathered, so the support was lacking. Just lots of different things that COVID impacted. How old we are when we grieve, when we have the experience, whether we had other experiences with it, just our personality style alone can affect our grief. How much other things are going on with stress and whatnot. And then that last one, grieving style. I think that's really helpful to know about. there's work by Ken Doka who has called it intuitive grievers and instrumental grievers. And really, I maybe term it more the feelers and the doers. Both are grieving, but the intuitive or feeler grievers are emoting and wanting to talk about it and like to have the story, the opportunity for the story to be told. Whereas the doers, the instrumental grievers, they are the ones who maybe will campaign to have a race in their person's honor, or they are building a birdhouse to put in the yard instead of wanting to express and talk and do those things. And I think it's helpful because sometimes this can be spouses grieving differently or people in the same family. And so we can tend to judge like, oh, why aren't they even seeming to be sad? What are they, heartless, or the instrumentals singing, oh, they're just crying all the time and they can't get themselves together. But it's just the different ways of grieving. And once we understand that, we can maybe honor those differences and be able to support and understand each other through their grief a little more. I'm blabbing. Anybody have any questions or things that they want to add in yet?
Thanks for taking a pause, Amy. I think it's helpful to pause, and I think everything you've shared so far has been really helpful. Feel free to come off mute. Elaine, did you have a question? You came off mute.
No, but it just some of the things she has said, I guess it is a comment, has given me food for thought. Just by how other people have reacted to our daughter's death. Some people are really willing to talk about her. Other people don't bring her up. Mm-hmm. And I just found that interesting. And it's a little hard when they don't talk about her.
You want her name to be
said.
You want to be able to have that door open to talking about your beloved daughter.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And I do visit about that a little bit in further down.
Thanks.
Companioning. This is one of my favorite concepts, and it is a philosophy that's threaded through all of our programs at Mourning Hope. Dr. Alan Wolfelt is a thanatologist, a studier of grief, who our founder Pam learned from, studied under, and he made companion into a verb, companioning. And it's really all about letting the grieving person lead, letting them have their own uniquenesses and honoring those, and not trying to fix or advise, but just being with the bereaved person and letting them and their heart lead us to what they need and how we can help. So whether you are maybe wanting to help someone who is bereaved, or if you are bereaved, these are some ideas on maybe what you can ask for, what you can do to help, or what you can ask others to do to help you. And it does kind of debunk some of those myths along the way, things that we've always maybe been accustomed to or had modeled to us. But when we learn different ways, it's helpful to then be able to support grievers in a better way. And I have a huge disclaimer on this. I'm going to give a list of maybe some unhelpful things, and we've probably all said them. I have in the past, before I learned what a better way was. So I don't want you to feel bad if you said something along the lines to someone, because I know that it most likely 100% was meant to help and to support. So I don't want you to beat yourself up about, oh my gosh, I've said that. And, now have a better way perhaps to think about it. But I know it was in a caring and supportive manner. And I don't want anyone's hesitation to prevent them from saying something. Elaine, perhaps someone isn't saying anything because they're worried about saying the wrong thing, or, have not gotten any idea about what is helpful. So I hopefully this next slide will really be helpful as we move forward. I always caution on the left there about trying to fix it. There is no fix for grief. We can't take it away. We so want to, but it's just not fixable. At least statements. Well, at least they lived for 80 years. So it still broke my heart when my 80-year-old mother died, or at least you have other kids, things like that. Caution there. Look on the bright side type of statements. Saying, I know exactly how you feel. Their feelings are their own, and we need to let them have those and not compare. Telling youth, you got to be the man or the woman of the house. Caution about that, because that's too much of a burden. It's God's will. God has a plan. Perhaps that's a belief. However, to the griever, we think, well, I don't like that plan. And, it's just a little bit of a heart hurt there when we talk about that. You'll meet someone else. We don't want to even think about that right now. Keep busy. That's a common one that we think is going to be helpful, and perhaps it is in some ways, to have our minds not be on that grief 24/7. That's healthy, actually. But it also kind of has that message of, just move on and be okay and forget about it all. It kind of negates that we got to lean into it too message. And this be strong. No, it's okay if you fall apart and have a hard day, week, year, 2 years, 6 years, whatever it is. Okay, some helpful things. I think always just, I've said this a lot of times, let me know what I can do to help. Well, let's go with maybe asking a specific thing. Hey, I'm going to pick up your kids Monday, Wednesday, Friday from school from now on, rest of the school year. Come in and clean one of their rooms in their house, offer to babysit, go get their groceries, whatever it might be. Do something really specific that they don't have to use brain power in order to come up with. That's putting more work on their to-do list. Books, I think, are just a beautiful way to, if your person is a reader, find a good book. Centering Corporation right there in Omaha is a really great. All their books and resources are about grief. Or even if a person isn't a reader, I like books that maybe are a daily meditation type read, a short and succinct reading about grief that they can visit every day. This one, include the deceased person in your conversation, even if it's a celebration. What do you think Sally would have said today, or what would she be thinking? They want to hear their name and have opportunities to share. Phones are a great thing for this reason, to put alerts on when that's the anniversary date of your friends, when their person died, or maybe it's their person's birthday, just, reach out on some of those anniversary dates that are difficult. Allow all feelings without judgment, any of them, anger or relief or regret or guilt. Sometimes we really like to take that guilt away. Oh, you couldn't have done anything. But we have to let them go through their woulda, coulda, shouldas, express them, talk about them, and we just sit with that. Then climb down in the hole with them. And I'll tell you what that means with the help of good old Brené Brown. Some of you may have seen this little clip before, but I just love it. So let's take a look here. I think I have to, go through a ad here, sorry.
And Amy, it's, the screen is just a square, right? The portion, so I think you have to.
Oh, okay, hold on. Okay. So do I have to move the little thingy?
Yeah, you can drag that green square, yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And I actually don't think we're hearing audio.
Okay.
Do you hear audio on your side?
No, that you can't hear audio?
I do not.
Okay.
No.
Let me see here.
So why is it?
Oh, and now, sorry, now we need the screen to be a little bigger, that green one. I
Yes, okay. Did you hear audio?
think so, yeah, let's try it from
Okay.
the beginning.
Ah. I wondered if, hold on.
It might be a little delayed, but we'll test it out, and if not, we can send the link in the follow-up
Okay.
this week.
Okay.
Got it.
All right, let's try it.
So what is sympathy? And why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy feels connection, sympathy allows disconnection. Empathy is not interesting. Charles the mindset is national scholar. He studied professions, very diverse professions, where anything is wrong with it. And here was not the others that could be restricted something. They're not just restricted with the other person, but I recognize the restricted with themselves. Some common sensors, that is really nice to be as much as us to do. Recognizing emotion and like what we're feeling for them. So yeah, I was like, it's kind of smoke slow. And so I was kind of take her, or shut up in the value, and stop, respond, go out. And then we learned to say, sympathy is, it's bad, huh? No, not so much. And then it's a choice, and it's a learning choice, but in order to pay it for goal, that you know, it's kind of foolish. Learn and response. And you're not fun. Because you know what? Someone is dancing with us. It's incredible. Times my language. What's trying to put this on my life here? So I'm going to church. Okay. Someone is fine. Yeah, it is. But one of the things we do sometimes are things very difficult thinking. I'm sharing something with you that's very difficult. I don't even know if it's like I'm just surprised. Because the truth is, really, there is stuff. What you included.
All right, let me try to get out of this.
Thanks, Amy. The audio was a little choppy. I think we could still
Okay.
do most of it, and we could, there were the subtitles that were helpful. So I'll go ahead,
Okay.
everyone else, and be sure to include a link of that video clip in the follow-up email this week. But I just wanted to let you know I could follow it and so forth, but it was a little choppy at some points.
Okay, good to know. Now I'm a little worried that my slides are, okay, oh, I see what I need to do.
And then while you're working on that, Steve had asked a question in the chat box. What was
Okay.
the resource in Omaha that you referenced? Center?
Okay, yeah, Centering Corporation.
I actually tried to Google that and I didn't find anything. Center
Okay,
Incorporation?
centering,
Oh, centering. Okay.
centering. See
Okay.
if that will come up. They
Yep.
maybe shortened their name.
I found it. Yes. I
Okay.
can send that as a resource in the follow-up email as well for anybody.
Okay, good. That'd be great. Thank you.
Thanks for asking, Steve.
Okay, back on track here. I thought I would just talk a little bit about children's grief, since that is how Mourning Hope started. And again, children are affected by cancer quite a lot, and just ways to support children if you have a child in your life. Oopsie. Okay, so 1 in 17 will in Nebraska are affected by impacted by grief. They will have had a parent or sibling die by the time they're 18. So again, huge need for services to support grieving children. And we know that adults, children alike, if grief is unprocessed, it will manifest in some way, often very detrimental to our health. Sometimes when anyone on staff here gives a presentation, it's often to adults, and without fail, we will have adults after the presentation say, wow, I so wish I would have had Mourning Hope or a similar organization when I was a kid and when my sister or parent died. And so again, we know grief will nag and continue to follow us until we find ways to address it. And of course, children aren't many adults, so they're going to have different experiences with their grief. Huge focuses of theirs are, oh, is this going to happen to me? Who will take care of me? And that magical thinking that children often have of, I think I caused this. You know, they wish it, and so it happens. I worked with a child for quite a long time who the last interaction that she had with her father was negative. It was, I hate you, and slammed the door. And then her thinking that's why her dad got into this car accident. And so we had to work very long. And in fact, I think more so it was her developmentally reaching an age where she knew that connection couldn't be made. But she really thought she was responsible and had a really complicated grief experience due to that. So sometimes adults are like this too, where the grief will come in bursts. It's dosed, and a lot of that is just our own self-preservation or defense mechanisms, that we cannot sustain grief all day long every day. So it's in bursts. You know, oftentimes kids will show us how they're feeling with their behaviors. We really need to give them lots of opportunity to express through play, art, different avenues than what adults would typically use. So important to use concrete language. We try to avoid the words, you know, passed away or went to sleep or lost them. Even that one, I use, but with kids, I try to avoid just, we've literally had little ones go looking under beds and in closets and outdoors because they overhear their adults saying that we lost grandpa today. And so just, that real concrete language is so important. Explaining real plain English, the illness maybe that their person is going through, or what happened in death. Because as we probably remember from our own childhood, our imaginations can conjure up things way worse than what is reality sometimes. Or even if reality is pretty awful, with that adult support and explanation and open door to questioning, it can be so much more helpful to youth to know. Again, use books, listen, just be available and with your kids, and allowing them to lead, again, that companioning notion. Talk about the person, even set a place at the table if that's something comfortable for you. Teach and model good coping, give lots of choices, give extra TLC. I encourage contacting the school. They're there a lot of their day, and letting support people there know. I love the concept of family meetings so that everyone knows. For example, Sunday night, we come together and we get to share highs and lows and tough things, ask questions. It's just a format that is relied upon and used to not only, talk about maybe some hard things, but share what's coming up, what's a fun thing we can do, what are some plans as a family. And then making memories, just so important, especially, even if someone is going through that cancer journey, to help them as they anticipate the future. A really nice list there of some things that you can do with youth. Include them. I use kids as five senses a lot. If they're anticipating going to the hospital to see their loved one, okay, let's go through, what do you think you're gonna see? What will you hear? What are some things they might expect to feel, touch, and just go through all that so that they are prepared ahead of time. Some examples of some neat memory making items. This is a book that I really like, whether anticipating a future with someone who's ill, or I use this with people who are grieving, to maybe be able to go back and do these 4 important things that matter the most. And I actually have had people even write 4 different letters. What would they like the person to forgive you for? And what do you forgive them for? What do you thank them for? And how do you want to express your love for them? So really valuable exercise or process that grief and unsaid things, perhaps. Now, to end here, this is one of my favorite books, and I love especially this chapter called Just Listen. I'm going to read it. It probably is, a minute long, but it's just a page, 30 seconds. So bear with me as I just read, and I feel like it's a really nice way to go through someone's journey with them. Maybe be able to ask for this if you are the bereaved. So thank you. Just listen. I suspect that the most basic and powerful way to connect to another person is to listen. Just listen. Perhaps the most important thing we ever give each other is our attention, and especially if it's given from the heart. When people are talking, there's no need to do anything but receive them. Just take them in. Listen to what they're saying. Care about it. Most times, caring about it is even more important than understanding it. Most of us don't value ourselves or our love enough to know this. It's taken me a long time to believe in the power of simply saying, "I am so sorry," when someone is in pain, and meaning it. One of my patients told me that when she tried to tell her story, people often interrupted to tell her that they once had something like that happen to them. Subtly, her pain became a story about themselves. Eventually, she stopped talking to most people. It was just too lonely. We connect through listening. When we interrupt what someone is saying to let them know that we understand, we move the focus of attention to ourselves. When we listen, they know we care. Many ill or grieving people talk about the relief of having someone just listen. I have even learned to respond to someone crying by just listening. In the old days, I used to reach for the tissues until I realized that passing a person a tissue may be just another way to shut them down, to take them out of their experience of sadness and grief. Now I just listen. When they've cried all they need to cry, they find me there with them. This simple thing has not been that easy to learn. It certainly went against everything I'd been taught since I was very young. I thought people listened only because they were too timid to speak or did not know the answer. A loving silence often has far more power to heal and to connect than the most well-intentioned words. And again, I think what Brene Brown said, it's not about the fixing, it's about the connecting. So thank you for connecting today and hearing about Mourning Hope and work we do. Be glad to answer any questions or open the dialogue or whatever folks need.
Thanks, Amy. I appreciate all of your insight. We will go ahead and share the slides with anybody that was registered today in a follow-up email, and I'll also include some of those resources. But we do have some time for questions, like Amy said. If anybody has any experiences that they want to comment on, any questions for Amy while we have her, we'll just open the floor.
I don't have a question, but it's like when you were talking about before about how long it takes, grief to go through, comes in spurts. My mom died the end of 2019, and she was one who played the piano and everything. And so my friend had asked me to go see the play, My Fair Lady. So it was during that play, it's like I just started crying because it was like, that's, that was like one of the musicals my mom played on the piano. We sang, we danced around. So yeah, it comes in spurts. And
That's a wonderful example of that. Yes. Music, smells, seasons can really make one of those waves come over us. And it's totally normal. Totally normal. I hope you had someone with you that just got it. And it's hard to hear, but grief lasts a lifetime, though it doesn't stay as harsh, especially if we do that hard work of mourning.
yeah, I mean, after grief, it becomes in one sense a new normal. for your
Yes.
life, you know.
That longing is, we've all longed for a love, and when it's gone, it continues, and it's proportionate to how wonderful that love was oftentimes.
Thanks for sharing your experience. Is there anybody else that has a question or a comment on anything that Amy has shared today?
Thank you for taking the time this morning to present this. It's helped a lot.
Thanks. You're very welcome.
Thanks
Glad
for
you all are here.
Thanks, Elaine, for saying that. And thank you very much, Amy, for all of your resources, your expertise. I know I've learned a lot, even in this short presentation, and I know those that watch this recording at a later time will also gain some helpful insight and resources as well. Steve in the chat said thank you. I think we'll close up. I'll just do a couple of quick announcements if that's okay, and then we'll end it for our time today. Like I said, our event today is recorded, so if you want to go back and look at anything, it'll be up on our YouTube channel this week. We'll send a link to that in a follow-up email with some resources this week. If you guys ever have topics that you'd like to see covered on these monthly webinars, feel free to reach out. We take everyone's suggestions and we try to implement those throughout the year. Like I said, we host these every month on different topics, so please feel free to reach out if you have any recommendations. The only other announcement that I'll give today is that we do have our upcoming annual conference coming up in May. It's scheduled for Tuesday, May 9th. It's local in Omaha. We probably will record the sessions for later viewing, but we won't have a hybrid option for the day of. But if you're in the local area, check out our website for that registrations. We have scholarships available, but it includes a luncheon and breakout sessions on different topics, just kind of like these sessions. Today we have a breakout session on anxiety, on side effects, on genetics, and several more. So check out our website for that. Looks like we have some good thank yous in the chat. Amy, if you haven't seen this, thanks so much for sharing. Very good and helpful information. Learned quite a few ways to help friends. And it looks like it was Steve's wife, Elizabeth, not Steve. So thanks for saying that, Elizabeth Jane. On that note, we will go ahead and close today. Thanks so much, Amy, for your help today.
Yeah, thank you.
Resources that you shared. Thanks everyone for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah.